Hello, today I am going to make this dish called bún bò Huế. It's a Vietnamese spicy noodle soup. I'm making this for friends and family, so it looks like it's a lot of meat. But I'm going to start out with beef shank, pig feet, and I had a pot of water here that I'm boiling. I add a little bit of vinegar in here. The vinegar will help take away the funky smell of the meat. So once the water's boiled, I'm gonna add the beef shank first. I can cook that for about 5 minutes, and then I'll take it out, and then I'll season it. And then after that, I will put the pig feet in there and cook it for maybe about 7 to 10 minutes. I'll take it out, and then I had to make sure I clean this really good before I put it back in the broth. Okay, so we will be right back once the water's boiled. Okay, so the water's boiling, so I'm adding these in here. I don't have a big pot, so I just do maybe a few pieces at a time. Ooh, this is a big piece. Okay. Right. So I'm gonna have 3 pieces in here. I'm gonna let it sit here, cook for maybe about 5 minutes, and then come back to it. Alright, so it has been 5 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this out. And then I put the others back in here. So this soup here, you wanted to put a lot of lemongrass in the broth because it's really good if you do more lemongrass. So this is how much I'm gonna put in the lemongrass. How much lemongrass I'm gonna put in the soup. So I'll go into it as we go. So I need to be. Alright, so when you smash the lemongrass, make sure you get it like this or break it apart, okay? Because that's where the fragrance is gonna come out from the lemongrass. Alright, so I'm gonna divide this into 2, and then I'm gonna go into it in a minute. Alright, so this is the actual lemongrass that I buy, and then what you do, you come back home, you can make sure you cut this part off and clean it really clean, and then and this is how I get my lemongrass. So there's 2 ways to put this in a bundle. You can get thread and tie them up. Since I don't have any, I got the lemongrass here. I'm just gonna go ahead and tie them up. Hopefully it works. Alright, so this is one bunch, and then I'm gonna tie this one up on this other one. Okay. So here's the 2 bunch of the lemongrass. One is gonna go in with the meat, and one's gonna go in after we take out the meat. So we make sure we have 2. So I switch out the water. I got a clean pot of water to cook the pig feet. So now the same thing, make sure you add some vinegar in here. For those people who do not eat pork, you just have it with beef. You can also add shrimp if you like. Now we want to cook this for at least about 7 to 10 minutes. Alright, so it's been 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take all this out. Remember, once I take all this out, I must wash this really clean before I put it back into the broth. Alright, so I took out the pig feet after I boiled it for 10 minutes, and I soaked this in the water now, and I'm getting ready to clean it. So make sure you get everything else that are around it out as much as you can. So make sure we get all this out, everything else in between. Okay. Alright. And then we just put it away. Drain it out for a minute. Put it away. Alright, so I'm gonna also add a couple teaspoons of the Korean chili powder. And the next thing I'm gonna add is going to be again the chicken flavor soup base mixed. Okay, just a couple teaspoons. And the last thing I'm gonna add on here is going to be this bong bo way seasoning. Just put maybe a teaspoon in here, and then we're just gonna mix it up. And then what I'm going to do is let it sit for about 15 minutes before I put it in the broth. Alright, so here we're going to start out with the broth. So I had about 5 quarts of water in here for now. So the meat that we had, the beef that we had cooked earlier, we're going to put it in here. This is a lot of meat. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm also gonna put half of the giant onions in here. And I'm going to put one of these lemongrass in here. Okay, and I'm just gonna let it slowly simmer for about an hour and a half, and then I'll come back to check on it. Alright, so now we are going to make the seasoning for the broth. So I have chopped up lemongrass, shallot, garlic, and we are going to use 1 bag of the bong bo way spice. We're going to start the process here. Turn the heat to about medium high again. I had about a couple tablespoons of oil in here. So again, I'm going to start out with the lemongrass because it's going to take a lot longer to cook than the shallots or the garlic. Again, we're probably going to have to cook this up to about 5 to 7 minutes. Alright, so I can smell the lemongrass. It smells so good. So now I'm going to add the shallots in here. Again, you know, you can add as much as you will like. There's no limit. We'll cook this for a little bit, and then we add the garlic in here. Okay. So it's kind of a little dry, so I just want to add a little bit more oil in here to make sure that it stays moisture. Let's give it another minute before I add the garlic in here. So I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of garlic in here. Cooked it for about a couple minutes, and then we'll add the bong bo way. Okay, so this is done here. So I'm going to put a whole bag because it's going to be a lot of broth I'm making. Mix it up a little bit. Make sure we don't burn it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water in here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. And then it's a little too thick, so I'm just add a little bit more water in here. And then I'm going to add this into the broth. So I have turned the heat down to medium low. And now with the seasoning that I just made, we're going to put some in here, not a lot. We can save some for later. All right. As you can see, now the broth is having that bong bong way color. All right. And unfortunately, my lemongrass bouquet came loose, but it's gonna be okay. All right. Now we're gonna let it simmer for about an hour and a half. All right. So now it's been 15 minutes. So since my pot is not big enough, so I had to use a separate pot for this. So I have maybe about 2.5 quarts of water in here that I'm gonna turn it on, and then I'm gonna add the pig feet in here. Hopefully this will be big enough for everything that I want to put in here. So I decided that I'm gonna add a few carrots and few radish into my soup because I like these two items in my soup, so that's why I'm adding it on there. So it has been about an hour and a half, so I go ahead and take the meat out. And then what I'm going to do, let it cool off before I slice them. Okay, so I took all the meat out. Now I had to remove the onion. And then what I'm gonna do is just, I need to add some more broth in here. So this time I am going to add a can of chicken broth. So I'll be right back. So I'm gonna add 1 can of chicken broth in here. I don't really use the neck bones or pork bone to make the broth because I like to use chicken broth. It's easier for me. So now I'm just gonna let it slowly simmer again, turn it back on for about 15-20 minutes, and then I'm gonna add seasons in here. Alright, so now it's coming to boil. I'm gonna add 1 piece of the rock candy. You can also find this at the Asian market. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it in here. Alright, so the rock candy is gonna make the broth, give it a little sweet. That's why we're not adding the regular sugar. The rock candy is not that sweet, just a touch of it. And then the next seasoning I have in here is just a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of fish sauce. Okay, again, it's based to your taste. Because sometimes when you season the meat, you don't have to add too much seasoning in here. And we're gonna give it a taste to see if I need to add more seasoning or not. All right, so now the next step we're gonna do is the noodle. And you can get any kind of noodle, and you can see they have the bong bo ware noodle here. Okay, what I normally like to do is I normally like to soak them in the warm water for about 15 minutes to 30 minutes before I'll boil it. So let's get okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the noodle for this particular soup, bong bo ware. It had to be a thick noodle. If you get the regular thin noodle, it won't be good. So make sure you buy the thick noodle. All right, we're gonna let it soak for 15 to 30 minutes. So I cooked the noodle, and make sure you just don't overcook it. I just want to show you. Once you get your finger run through it, be able to cut it with no problem, then it's cooked. So I already have put some noodle in the bowl already, so now we're gonna put some meat in here. Alright, so here's the beef shank that we cooked earlier, and this is the Vietnamese ham. So for this dish, you gotta have beef shank and the pig feet, and then the Vietnamese ham. So I'm gonna add a couple pieces because I don't like to have a lot of meat on mine. Maybe a couple pieces of the Vietnamese ham. Okay. So here's the final products of the bong bo ware. So we have the beef shank, we have the Vietnamese ham, we have the pig feet in here, and then the soup. You will garnish with cabbage, banana flour. We have basil, and I don't know what this leaf called, but anyway, you can any kind of mint you like, and then definitely a piece of lemon or lime with it. If you like it spicy, earlier I have another video show you how to make this chili oil, which is the satay pepper. Right, so I'm gonna put it depends on, again, like I say, depends on how much vegetable you like. I'm gonna put all of these in here. I'll put some of the banana flour in here, and then I'm gonna have to use my hand to put the mint in here. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna squeeze this around it, and I'm like to have a little bit of pepper because it's spicy, so I'm just gonna put it right on top of here, and then I can mix it up. All right, so this is how the soup's supposed to be.